Spartans. He's been managing Spartans for about the last 9 years. Previous to that, he was the head coach of Edinburgh University, and Dougie also had a playing career from Gallifreydine to Bonnyrigg Rose, as well as senior football as well. And Dougie has also been instrumental in putting a lot of young players into the professional game as well. So delighted to have the first team gaffer on tonight. Michael Bolo is probably the most experienced player at Spartans. He joined Spartans in 2019, and his senior career has taken him to Ross County, Alloa, Berwick Rangers, East Stirling, Forfar, Clyde and Montrose. So I'm sure he's got a wealth of experience to share tonight with us as well. Blair Atkinson. So Blair's a striker, and he graduated from the youth section and been part of the club since it started at Flora Soccer School. At the under 17 age group in 1994, he's won 4 trophies, including the Scottish Cup, which was the first squad to win a Scottish Cup at Spartans. Blair broke into the senior team in 2014 after a loan spell out to East of Scotland team Vale Leven, and Blair has scored 49 goals in 104 appearances for Spartans. So again, delighted to have the 3 of them on. So without further ado, the first question I'm going to ask, and this is from Lewis at the under 15s. So it's in, what extra training by yourselves have you done in order to achieve what you have to develop as a player and a person? And what actually did you do, and how much did you do? So can I just open that out? Sorry, some technical problems there.
You're fine.
Dougie, can I throw that to you first of all, please?
Yeah, of course you can. First of all, it's nice to see everybody, to see all your faces on the call tonight. Thanks for having us. I'll start by saying that I'm not an expert in anything other than my own journey, so I'm just happy to share my insights and reflections with you, and you can choose whether to take them on board or not. Also, Stuart, I don't mean to be sort of like, I guess, cheeky to kick off, but the players that I've helped to go senior, it's been more down to them than me. Yep. My job as a coach is to try and create a learning environment that players will respond to and hopefully they'll engage with. So all those players that have gone senior, I'm really, really proud of them, but it's more down to them and their efforts than me. So in terms of additional training that I've done, gosh, you're taking me back now to when I was 11, 12, 13, training underneath the banana flats. And I was brave to do that, let me tell you. But I did, because I wanted to try and be the best player I could be. And I remember my mum buying me all the magazines that I wanted to get and get the wee drills. And I go down and set up the drills and I practice on my own. But funny enough, actually going that far back, which is like 40 years, I think probably people admire me for having that determination and that work ethic. So although I was maybe a bit nervous and thought I might get slagged, it was actually the opposite. I think people were rooting for me and wanted me to do well because I was for a real working class background. So in terms of investing time and trying to get the most out of myself, I'd like to think that's something I've always done. And I'll maybe speak about that a bit more when we get to my coaching career.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Bolo?
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's good to be on today and speaking to you guys. I guess if we go directly to the question around extra training and stuff, I think it changes as you go through different points of your career. I think when I was full-time up at Ross County, you had to be doing extra training after normal training just to try and develop yourself and as a young player focus to try and get yourself into the first team. So that was a necessity essentially at that point to do extra training yourself, working on your strengths or working on your weaknesses. And for me, I was quite slight of build as a centre-half. I had to try and bulk up, and when I was younger I did certainly. I've kind of lost that tone now, I guess. But things like that you had to do when you were full-time and trying to break into the first team. And I guess as you go through different stages of your life and career, it kind of changes. I think the key message that comes from it is everybody's different in ability, certainly. One thing everyone can do is work hard or try hard or do things to develop themselves in life in general, also in football. So, and Dougie's a good mentor of that, especially in the first team, how guys can work on their own things and out with the training we get. So I guess as a general theme on that one, I think the more you do to develop yourself at any age group and make yourself better and work on your weaknesses, the better it'll be for you. Because obviously, ultimately, everyone's not always blessed with a great skill or technical ability like myself. And that's a true point, but I work hard on the things I was good at, such as defending, heading, being strong and things like that, you can certainly work on yourself. So I think that's a key message to take on extra stuff out with your normal training. It'll certainly help you in the long term. And other players who have more technical ability or might dwindle away if they're not applying themselves as well as you. So definitely worth doing.
Fantastic. And on you, Blair?
Hi guys, nice to see you. Yeah, just same as Bolo, directly to the point. In terms of extra training and stuff, I was going to the gym extra 2 times a week, just practicing stuff that I knew was my strong areas of my game, which is my explosive power and trying to just do everything that I knew that I was really good at, like my pace. I've got a small build as well, so I knew that defenders were maybe trying to get a hold of me. So in the gym, I was maybe doing extra little sprints and explosive power. And obviously, when the gyms aren't open just now, I've just been out the back in the park. Just anything extra at all is a total help. So whether it's 5 minutes, half an hour, just anything is definitely a great help. So that's what I've been up to.
I was just going to add as well, Stuart, before we move on the points here. I think the guys being at Spartans, it's probably one of the few fantastic facilities around in Edinburgh, certainly. And more to the point, when we were younger growing up, we didn't have all the tools and methods that are available now through the world. But at Spartans, I don't think the guys will get a better environment or be encouraged them more to do things on their own. And if they need help, certainly ask your coaches, etc. Or if you need anything development-wise, again, ask your coaches, because I'm sure everybody will do all in their means to make it available for you to help you progress up the ladder.
Yeah. Sorry, just
Stuart, if I can just add, Stuart, I think the guys have answered that really well. I think 2 things I would encourage the players to think about is that you are all different, you are all individuals, and you are all running your own race. You're traveling your own journey, and I would encourage you to do all you can to try and get the best out of yourself, because the competition is with yourself. So even the fact that you describe it as extra training, maybe change the language, and maybe think about just the choices that you're making in terms of how you invest your time, and is that taking you towards your goals, or is it taking you further away from your goals? Because ultimately it's your race and you're responsible for your race. So just think about how you invest your time.
Yeah, great, Dougie. Question here now from Nigel. Nigel's with under 15s and 17s. And Dougie, you can put 2 hats on, a coach's hat and a player's hat. And it's, what is the normal week for a Spartans as a part-time player? And again, Dougie, you can maybe pick up from your experience as a manager and a little bit in the sort of group as the players.
I can tell you what my ideal week might be, but we'll have to look at Bolo and Sid's faces to see if they follow that pattern or not. If we start with Sunday, it would be an active recovery. And that might be a light jog, it might be walking the dog at the park, but it'd be something physical. It'd be something physical. And that would be my priority on the Sunday, I would suggest. And then on the Monday, I would hope they would invest a little bit of time in doing a little bit of self-reflection on their own performance and the team's performance by watching the video analysis. So that they then come to train on the Tuesday and they're prepared to have a high quality conversation with their staff about their performance level at the weekend, and they can take part in the debrief at the start of the training session. We obviously train on the Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm quite happy for the guys to have a day off. Thursday, we're back training. Friday, again, it's about making sure they're resting and recovering, and probably starting to really think about the mental aspect of the game and thinking about the guy they'll be up against on the Saturday and so on and so forth. And then, of course, on Saturday, it's game day and match day. So for the most part, I would expect them to be doing something 5 days out of 7. But I also think it's important to do other things and to switch off as well. I'm a great believer in making sure we've got the right work-life balance, for want of a better phrase, and that everybody gets a chance to experience different things.
Fantastic. Come to you next, Blair, on that.
For the coaches that are on the call, I don't get a single day off, so I'm every day, but you'll know that.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what the gaffer said. So the Sunday is active recovery. So typically me and my girlfriend would probably walk down through Stockbridge, grab a coffee and a bite to eat. The Monday is probably where I would put in a little bit extra work in the gym, probably do a bit more running, a little bit of weight training. On the Tuesday we have training, obviously, typically a little bit harder because we've got a little bit of a longer rest period to the Saturday. The Wednesday is usually yeah, as Dougie said, my day off, that would usually just put the feet up in the house. Thursday, yeah, we're back in training. Sometimes starting to focus towards the game on the Saturday, whether it's like the set pieces and things like that. And then the Friday, sometimes we've got a game on the Friday night as well. So it all just depends. Like if we've got the game on the Saturday, and straight away on the Saturday, as Dougie said, it was just game day. So just focused 100% on the game on the Saturday until final whistle, basically.
Fantastic. Bolo?
Yeah, just following on. So I guess my week's slightly different from Blair and the manager, maybe in that because I'm old now and coming towards the end of part of my career, I only have to train on a Thursday night to let my body recover from games. After a Saturday, it takes a bit longer to recover, so I don't train on Tuesday. I also have different commitments around work and family as well, which again, Spartans being the club they are, I've accommodated that within my work-life balance to ensure that I'm the best on a Saturday because my work life is good. So even though I'm not training on Tuesday, I still do my own things. And I guess the whole thing comes to a head on a Saturday. If you're not getting the right work-life balance, it'll affect your performance on a Saturday because your life's not right. So Gaffer helps me in that respect, I guess, as well. So I guess that's my week. Training Thursday, play Saturday. But I think a point to make is that to be a footballer at any level, I think even right down to youth, it takes up a lot of your time and a lot of commitment. So, for example, if your mates are going out on a Friday night, you're playing a Saturday, you can't go to those things. And again, if you've got recovery sessions on Sundays or Thursdays and Tuesdays, you've got to be focused on that even on a Monday and a Wednesday, for example. So it takes commitment from everyone as a player to dedicate to the club, because the club ultimately, at some level, will pay your wages if you get up in the first team and you're salaried and to perform on a Saturday. So you've got a bit of responsibility in that respect. So the week is all geared up to a Saturday, but there's different parts and it's equipment right through, I think. Just something to be conscious of when the guys want to progress up.
Okay. And can I throw a wee question back to Dougie here? Because I know it's one of the things you're probably big at, Dougie, in the last sort of 20 years, the mental side of the game's taken over in a lot of sport, on the social media and that. What sort of bits of advice, how could you maybe help the coaches to help some of the young players that are helping develop on the sort of mental side?
Gosh, that could take the whole call, Stuarty. I think that the first thing is for the coaches to have high quality conversations, and without patronising about it, what do I mean by that? Really focusing on the listening skills, because I think that as coaches we're wired to want to give and we want to help, and sometimes in our desire to help we maybe get too much advice too quickly, and maybe they take time to really understand what's going on, and maybe where the demons are and where the insecurities are. And I know certainly when I go back on my own playing career, I lacked a wee bit of confidence, and I hid it, and I used to go into dressing rooms, and I think everybody, because I was captain, everybody thought that I was this really confident guy, when in reality I was somebody that needed a cuddle, actually. But I would encourage them to have conversations around what's the inner voice saying, what's that internal self-talk, and how are their players managing the ups and downs in a game, because in a game you don't have any time to waste expending any energy on worrying about a mistake you've made. And you've got to stay in the present. You just got to stay in that moment. And the time for dealing with that mistake and learning for that mistake is on the Monday, maybe like a video analysis session or having a conversation over the weekend with your coach. So for me, I think, again, every player's different. That's why I would start by saying listening. And for example, Sid and Bolo are both very, very different. They're on different journeys at different stages in their life. They've got different life experiences. And it'll be the same for the players at any age group. They'll have different backgrounds, different things going on in their life. But the one thing I can promise everybody is that journey that looks like this in life is the same in football, and you can't stop it. So I think the fact that you accept that, you understand that, and you embrace that, and you embrace like learning for your experiences. And again, I'm big on language, so I didn't like using the word failure. So you learn for your experiences, but certainly on the mental side, it's, again, everybody's very, very different, and some people might take longer to open up. And it's just trying to identify the things that work for the individual, really.
So as Dougie just summed up, it's try to get to know your players as people, as young people first and foremost.
Well, it's helping them. I think it's helping them to get to know themselves, Stuart. I think that the biggest quality a coach has is asking the right question at the right time. As I said, I'm fully aware that there'll be times when I'm a motivated idiot. And when I say motivated idiot, I'm really well intentioned, and I want to help my players, and I want to help everybody in that room. And maybe it was the right time to just be quiet. But again, as I go back to this point, that as coaches, we want to help, we want to give, we want to take the pain away sometimes. But sometimes, like you say, to learn for the experience, we've just got to stand by the player's side and wait till the pain's passed.
Okay, brilliant. What are the lessons you've learned on your football journey, and what do you think you might have done differently if you could go back in time? Blair, I'll go to you with that one.
So what I've learned probably is when you're coming up through the ranks, like 16, 17, 18, you're young and you tend to think you know it all, and you don't really. Like I always used to think your talent would take you all the way, and it just doesn't work like that really. The gaffer always says, if your talent's not working in the game, you just, it's going to sound boring, but you work harder and you just work even harder, and eventually it's going to start paying off. And yeah, I just wish I'd maybe listened a little bit sooner and worked harder earlier. Probably as hard as I'm working now. So yeah, just as I say, as boring as it sounds, you've probably heard it a million times before. It's the amount of work you put into it is what you're going to get out, probably. That's what I think.
Great. Polo?
Yeah, I think obviously I've had a longer career than Blair, so probably maybe more reflections in this instance. So I think two of the key things I've certainly picked up through my career and look back now, and is that one thing you should cherish as you go through your career in the different teams, even your age groups now, is your changing room and your teammates within that, and your coaches included in that can be your best mates, and support each other all the time around people you can rely on and people you can turn to in any times you need around personal life or football, and have that support network with each other, because it's the best thing you'll ever do in football if you have that closeness as a squad, and that will surpass anybody's talents. I mean, I've been in good squads before, Clyde and Ross County and stuff, and never really did anything. And the team we had success was with Montrose, who won the league. And on paper, our squad was average at best. But everybody really looked out for each other and got on with each other, socialised, and with families and coaching staff included in that. It made such a difference, and essentially won this league and got success in the playoffs and the championship and stuff like that. So that's a key thing to remember as you go through, because it's easy to forget. And a lot of the guys on the call today will have lifelong pals here. I've got guys who like David Greenhill, who was the captain at Spartans the last couple of years. He's been my mate since we were kids, and Chris Townsley, etc. And they followed us through my whole career. We've been at the same clubs and stuff. So really do cherish that. And secondly, I think, again, because it came latterly in my career, what you call success at Montrose, winning leagues and going into playoffs, etc. It's enjoy it. Enjoy the success. Enjoy the victories when you get them. Because they're few and far between in football. People don't often, and the good thing as well, people don't often remember your failures. They always remember your successes. So then you get too caught up on failing or not winning things or having bad games and stuff, because people will generally forget that, and they'll remember when you win leagues or you do well as a team, even if that's no winning league and just doing well. So enjoy the good times, and don't get too lows with the bad times, because they're easily forgotten, and you'll progress as a person with those failures. So I guess that's the two kind of main things that I'd pick out as learning points as I've been through my career.
And again, Dougie, you can pick up as a player or a manager.
First of all, I'd echo everything the boys have said. I think, like Bolo, I would always start with having an understanding about the things that we value by being in the game. And like Bolo, the big thing for me is actually the friends I've made on this journey. So I think having a sense of perspective for the off, because when I was younger, I was a perfectionist and I really beat myself up. And I probably want to go back to him and say to him, like, if I was doing it differently, just chill out a wee bit. Because the joy in a dressing room actually comes for those friendships and those shared experiences. And Bolo's right in terms of celebrating the successes, but I can promise you, when you're celebrating the success and you look to your right or look to your left and it's with one of your best friends, it's the best feeling in the world. But you don't get to that place unless you're prepared to be vulnerable in a dressing room, and you're prepared to open up, and you're prepared to give. I'm a great believer in what you send out comes back the way. So when you're in a dressing room and you look around the dressing room and you're asking yourself, how am I helping my teammates here, not just on and off the park, what would your answer be? Could you do more? Could you give more? Could you be the role model in that dressing room that's leading the way in terms of acts of kindness and just looking out for each other? I would always start with those things, because if I can get those things right, then everything else will follow. So I think I would have been a bit less harsh on myself. when I was growing up and I was a player, I think when I was younger. As a coach, when I first started, I go back to being a motivated idiot. I think I was probably still a frustrated player. I mean, I jumped about in the touchline like when I think back now, I was really combative and I wanted to pick fights with everybody. And I think, again, I would maybe say to him just to chill out a little bit and just focus on what really matters, which is how can I provide useful and relevant information for my players? Because that's the most important thing. You've only got a short window to do that at half time. So me being pumped up and full of emotion and wasting the first 5 minutes on having a go at everybody, that's not really helpful for the players, is it? So I think I remember watching a Bobby Robson documentary years ago, and on the back of it, I wrote 3 questions in my wee book. I'm a great scribbler. I like mind mapping, and I scribbled during a game as well. And for a while, I had to practice this as I was walking across the pitch at half time, just to keep asking myself the same question, which is, what does my team need from me right now? What does my team need from me right now? Know how am I feeling? What does my team need from me right now? So again, I wish I'd done that for day one. I think I've got a lot better at that.
Yeah, no, I think that's some good advice for the coaches as well. Even though we're in development football at the younger ages, everybody get passionate and they can sometimes get a little overexcited in the sidelines. And as you said, as coaches and managers and mentors, how can we help our team and our players in match day situations?
And I think that's the risk, and that's a common misunderstanding. Like, I'm not for a minute saying that we dilute the passion in any way. It's just how it reveals itself and how it's presented. I'd like to think I'm a really passionate coach, and I'm a really passionate guy. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and that's a good thing, but it can also be a weakness as well.
Yeah.
Thinking, for example, as a coach, like if you wear your heart on your sleeve, you might find the coach in another technical area picks up on that and he chucks a grenade, and before you know it, you're having a running battle with him for 10 minutes, which has no influence on the game at all. So it's that type of thing. I think I would, as I say, go back and say to myself, look, keep your feet on the ground, keep your perspective, and remember why you're here.
Brilliant. This is a question that's probably a wee bit more prevalent for maybe Dougie in his playing career in Blair, and it's from Terry to under 16s, and it's, what advice would you give to smaller players who can sometimes be physically outmatched against tougher opponents, perhaps bullied a little bit? What advice and experience would you get them to stay on the journey?
Listen, I thought Blair's answer was brilliant earlier on, because he articulated, like, say, the strengths that come for him being small. It's more difficult for centre-halves to pick him up. His explosive power, he's got this great ability to turn either way. He can drop either shoulder. And if you ask Bolo, does Bolo want to play against a Sid week in, week out? He'll probably say no. I don't think Bolo sees that as a weakness in Sid at all. He'd much rather play against a guy who's 6'2" and he can get up against and be aggressive. So, I played centre mid all my career. I'm only 5'7". I like to think I tackled like I was 6'2", but I had to tackle like that or I was going to get hurt. So I learned pretty quickly that I had to be physical. But I think what it taught me was probably a greater appreciation of space and distances. Because as a centre midfield player, when you're 5'7", you've got to be able to read the game well and have a sense of where the ball might drop, so you can pick up second balls. Just by having, I think, a better understanding of the game, not by being able to go in and win a 50-50 tackle. And of course, I had to be able to do that. But I think it gave me a better appreciation of space and how to defend situations before they happened. I didn't know that at the time, to be honest. I only know that now as a coach, as I've sort of spent more time understanding the game. But I see being a small player not as a negative, far from it. I think it can be a big advantage.
Sorry, Dougie, can I just come back to that? As Spartans, name in the community, team-wise, it's sometimes thrown at us as a club that we're nice, our players are nice, and we're maybe no as aggressive as teams, we're not at that street. So I suppose that falls into the individual smaller players.
I guess, like I say, if we were to counter that argument, I can think of worse things to be described as, and to be called. But no, I think that we want good people representing the Spartans family, but we also want it to matter. It's not life or death, but it does have meaning. It does matter. Like I said, I think if you're talking about, like you say, what it takes to get to Spartan's first team, well, the result does matter. People will have a look and we'll see how the team's done. We know we have an influence on people's mood depending on our result, for example. So it's not recreational football. It does matter, but as I said, I think we still want to keep a sense of perspective.
Yeah.
But you need desire. You need ambition. It's got to be to be meaningful. I grew up in a household where my dad didn't let me win anything. So it meant that when I first beat him at something, it had value. You know, he didn't go easy with me, that's for sure. So, you know, whether that contributed to my desire to win and my desperation to win, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I suspect it did.
Yeah, okay. And we're going to lighten the mood a little bit, and this is from Jamie, 2007s, and it says, what is your favourite match being at Spartans and why? And again, Dougie, you're a player at Spartans, so you can be a player or a manager. So what's been...
I'll let one of the others take that first. Sorry, I just tried to sneak a bit of fuel there. Sorry.
Right, Blair, you can take this.
Was that for Spartans, Stuart, sorry, or at Spartans?
Playing for Spartans.
I've had a few now. Probably playing at Hampden against Queen's Park in the Betfred Cup. Obviously, it's a national stadium. It was brilliant arriving on the team coach, etc., with the boys and stuff, and just felt it was amazing. It was huge. The running track round it. We went 1-0 up. We lost 2-1 unfortunately, but it was brilliant. It's, you know, Scotland play there, the cup finals are all held there. It was just a little insight of what football can really be about if you can make it to the top level. So yeah, it just gave you a little extra bit of hunger. So yeah, it was great. I liked Queen's Park game at Hampden.
Great. And so, Bolo, we can open this up since you've had a few other more clubs than Blair, that you can pick any other of your teams you've been involved in. Doesn't necessarily have to be Spartans.
All right. Okay. Our best example. So obviously winning the league with Montrose on that day. I waited 16 years to win anything. So there you go, guys. Bide your time. And I won it that day. Montrose played against Elgin City, and we won that. I think, as most players will be, when you get up in the professional game, even in the Spartans, including this, when you play against bigger teams such as Hibs, Hearts, Rangers, Celtic, etc., and these big stadiums are always great occasions, and win, lose or draw, you go out to enjoy it. So I played a few of those, and which is always good. I think for taking it back to Spartans, it might be a bit weird because I think the games we're going to talk about were defeats, and I like when we play at Spartans, I like playing against the so-called bigger teams, so Kelly Hearts, East Kilbrides, etc., and Bonnie Gross. I like to challenge, as everyone does, themselves against the better teams as best as possible. But I think last year we lost to Kelly 1-0, I think, last minute. And after the game, we all had a big fight with Barry Ferguson. No, I should be saying that, but again, I think that one, and then Bonnie as well. I think the week after or week before we got beat 3-2. But I think for those two, for Spartans, that was kind of the spark for me, and maybe Dougie, and that would be the same. So well, actually, we're not far off these top teams here. They've spent big budgets, big money, and we're actually well capable of being up there with them if we apply ourselves properly. So for me, in a Spanish shirt, those were probably the two that stick in my mind. In that respect, but obviously that, and playing Liverpool, I guess, was a good occasion for the club as well. Playing one of the bigger teams, and I know a couple of Liverpool players have moved on to bigger things. So yeah, I think that'd be mine in a nutshell.
Yeah. And again, Dougie, you can pick. You've had a long playing career and a manager career as well. So
I think the Spartans one's probably quite easy. It would be the Morton game for me. I think the Morton game was special because all the different parts of the Spartan family were there on the day, and just the way the game played out, and for Jack Beasley, who worked for the academy to score the winning goal and everything else, and for us to have had the Scottish Cup in the primary schools and the high schools that week and everything else. It was just the perfect end to what was an amazing week. And at that point, Morton were obviously top of the first division. They were full time, they were flying. So for us to beat them was something really, really special. And it represents the deepest that we've gone in the competition as well, because that year we then went on and played Berwick in the next round, and we drew the first game. So I like to tell people we got to the last 9 of the Scottish Cup, which makes people smile. A bit like Bolo, actually, as a player, probably the one that springs to mind is a game I played for Whitehill Welfare against Stranraer in the Scottish Cup. And we were a decent side in the 90s, Whitehill Welfare, and I was there for 8 years, and I loved my time there. And like Bolo, some of my best friends in life are guys that played in that Whitehill team with me. So I've got really fond memories of my time there. We played Stranraer in the Scottish Cup, and they were top of the second division, hadn't been beaten all season. Tommy Sloan was the top goal scorer in Scotland, and we went to Stranraer and we were winning 3-1 with 10 minutes to go in the Scottish Cup, and we just run out of legs. We generally just run out of legs, and we drew 3-3. It was one of those days where I sat in the dressing room at the end of the game and I was looking at my best mates, and we'd absolutely given everything, gave a great account of ourselves. Nobody expected us to get a positive result. And it just felt amazing. It felt amazing. And to this day, it's still a really, really fond memory.
Yes, it's making memories, as you said earlier, and with friends in your team as well. So
Yeah.
A couple of questions from Gordon. So Gordon's were under 14s. Some good questions, sort of more football related. One of them is, of the players that haven't adapted to the transition into the first team, is there a common reason for that? And if so, how can us as coaches be looking to support that as they come through the journey? So it may be players who have maybe found the gap into the first team challenging for whatever reason.
What a great question, actually. A really good question. It's not a straightforward answer, but I'll try and keep it short and sweet because obviously time constraints. I think it's very difficult for a young player to go from being probably one of the cultural architects in their team and one of the star players to then having that sense and that feeling that they're at the bottom of the ladder again. And actually, at the same time, they're trying to form a new relationship with a new coach. That they're maybe not getting many minutes. And again, that's an unfamiliar situation for them. So that mental strength, I think, really comes in there. And also like that ability to keep the faith and trust the process. Sid went out on loan a couple of times to Valley Leaving. And I kept telling people that it'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And he had the patience. And I'm really pleased to hear him speak about just now, obviously, how hard he's working now. And he's probably arguably working harder than he's ever done on his game. But that's his journey. And there's other people that have come into the first team and have adapted a little bit quicker. And there's others that haven't been able to adapt because they just wanted to play. They just wanted to play. So for them, the goal wasn't actually to play at the highest possible level. They just wanted to play on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and sorry, Dougie, and I think, certainly yourself and Bolo and Blair will know that in the last sort of 5-6 years, the Lowland League, the standard is raised. A lot of these teams have brought more finances, there's a better standard in, so it's raising the bar for everybody.
And that's fantastic, because if the competition is with ourselves to become the best version of ourselves, then we need the opponent to be strong to stretch us. So we should be embracing that and be delighted to see that. And Bolo's right, like I said, we're not a million miles away, but the last leg, if you like, of this amazing journey this football club's been on the park, this is going to be the most difficult challenge we've faced. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Because there's players now coming in the Lowland League that are coming for full-time football at a championship level. So Adam Corbett signed for Stenhousemuir. His preparation to go and play in League Two has been defending Chris Erskine, who came for Livingston. It's been Nicky Lowe for Queen of the South. He's been up against high-quality players to prepare him for that step up. So yeah, it's not easy, but there's people there like Sid who've done it, who've shown it can be done.
Yeah. And that's probably...
Just on top of that, as someone coming through, when I came through the youth system at Ross County, anyone trying to get in the first year, I think it's key for the players listening in to definitely trust the coaches and trust the process, because as Dougie says, it's key that you do that. I mean, when I was at Ross County, I got loaned out to Brora Rangers by Alex Smith, and I was at that point thinking I was the best thing since sliced bread, coming up for the youth team, best player there. Then you end up in Brora, end of nowhere, then getting hammered every week. You have to trust them that it's a learning curve, and sometimes you have to do these loan spells to move between 20s football and first team. It's a totally different game, so definitely trust the coaches, and again, Spartans environment is one of the best to be nurtured up through that.
Okay. And so this is a Gordon again, that's probably a follow-on, and he's Gordon saying, is there any specific areas that the youth section coaches should focus on to support the development of players to prepare them to the pathway to the first team? And he's saying this is focused in the early phases of 11-a-sides, so perhaps under 14s to 16s. So again, Dougie, going back to you and your sort of coaching hat and development hat there.
Another good question, Gordon. For me, it would be the tactical side of the game. Is use video analysis to give the young players the pictures that let them see the internal distances, the starting position, the triggers to press, and so on and so forth. But just having an appreciation of like shape. So if you're playing 4-4-2 up against a 3-5-2, in all likelihood, where is it they're going to get out? in all likelihood, where is it you're going to get an overload? And to have those types of conversations with your players so they've got an understanding of how one shape up against another will reveal itself in the game. So when there's an overload against them, they don't panic and you prepare them for that situation. So for me, it would be the tactical side of the game, because by that stage, they've already had quite a fair bit of development around ball mastery and technical development, and that's things that they can also do on their own. But actually watching video analysis or studying matches and games when it's two different shapes against each other, I think is particularly useful.
Yep. And Bolo, I'll get your experience in that as well.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again? Sorry. Did you waffle too long there? I forgot it.
Oh, well, just saying, is there any specific areas that the youth section coaches should focus to support the development of players to prepare them in the pathway for first team opportunities? And,
No, I think as Dougie said, I think a lot of the stuff as the guys get older and go through the game, it's more technical and tactical stuff. And learning that part of the game, because as Dougie said, they'll develop themselves more around their technical ability. But good luck to the coaches, because there's nothing worse than getting shapen on a Thursday night at training and getting showed when to play a 4-4-2. So for the coaches, it's a challenge to accept this, to keep players engaged while they're doing that part, because it's not a fun part for every player. They want to kick a ball in the goals and score loads of goals, but it's a key part, and try to keep it fun and relative is hard.
And I think for me, like I say, it's about sticking with it. So it's not doing 2-hour sessions and ticking a box and thinking that's me done tactical development. I'd much rather you thought of it as like, how do you eat an elephant? So it's like one bit at a time. Just continually keep feeding out wee small chunks and wee bits of information. So it might be something for like Sky Sports on the Monday night that Carragher and Neville have been talking about. Just focus in on 1 or 2 minutes. Doesn't need to be the whole hour session, but just focus in on 1 or 2 minutes. And especially if you can relate that point to maybe something that happened in your game or something you've been working on for the last month or so. Or it might be a tweet. You send it to the players in the squad. Because everybody learns differently as well, and people respond to different sort of like sources of information too. So try and be creative in how you're presenting this information. And Bolo's right. I'm not a huge fan of having the players standing around for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. So for me, my personal preference is, I like to draw on a flip chart and do that for 5-6 minutes. But I also like to refer to clips and footage of our actual matches, and then have a conversation with the player and let them see that he's maybe become detached. If he's a fullback, he's maybe become detached. He's centre half in a particular situation, and ask him what his thought process was, and then share with him what my thought process is when he's presented with that situation and what I would prefer him to do and why.
Yeah, no, that's great. And this is probably a follow-on, a bit of crossover, and this is from Roger, who's in with the 15s as well. And he's got a wee football as a game played with their head, executed with their feet, and that's Piero. And he probably says, what would you recommend young players to do to improve their technical knowledge of the game away from the pitch? So it probably follows on, Dougie, what you were talking about there with the social media and clips and how they're learning differently as well.
I mean, there's so much information out there now. There really is. And maybe just like, doing a search and just looking for match analysis. It's been written by people. You get lots of people that are doing their qualifications that will tweet, presentations they've done and so on and so forth. But there's some amazing podcasts. There's fantastic stuff on YouTube. Gosh, I wish I was starting over again. It's interesting because I think that, Roger, was that Pirlo's quote, was it? Did you say top and bottom? Yeah, I like to talk about top, middle and bottom. Far from me to suggest for a minute that I've got more knowledge than Pirlo. Not at all. But I think in terms of top, middle and bottom, the key aspect in terms of for me, in terms of top is are our players self-aware? Are we helping them again through asking the right questions? So how do we develop that level of football intelligence? And this also connects to the mental aspect we spoke about earlier on. So, it's quite a lot to just sort of clump together our emotional intelligence, mental, the side of the game, and then the football intelligence, and there's just so many things. So I think it's just trying to strip back and say, okay, so if it's top, middle and bottom, how do they think about the game before it, during and after? In terms of the middle, what is the level of ambition and desire, and do they embrace sort of responsibility? So for middle, for me, is more about the person's attributes and their characteristics. And then bottom, that's about the technical ability and the ball mastery and so on. So I think we're trying to develop that top, middle and bottom at all times. So again, understanding like what your players respond to best, that would be the strategy I'd go for in terms of trying to teach them tactical development, because if they love it and they enjoy it, then they're going to embrace it. If they find the form of teaching difficult, then they're going to shy away from it. And they're going to probably like reveal that in a way that might be a negative sort of like energy, and it might be frustrating for you, but actually they're just trying to hide their fear of failure and their embarrassment.
Yeah, okay, good stuff. Another one from Roger, and again, some of these questions are maybe slightly crossing over, but it's what piece of advice would you give yourself as a 15-year-old, knowing what you know now, standing there as a player?
I'm going to tell you this one first, because it's something, looking back there, in fact, I've not really stopped my whole career, is it's quite a key one actually, is discipline, and that's discipline on the park for me. I am the worst, as Dougie will tell you, for shouting back at referees, etc. On a Saturday and try to control that. And I guess looking back, not just to 15, but right back then in my career, that's things I wish I'd curbed at an earlier age, because it's hard to change it now. I'm trying my best under Dougie's guidance. But so that's a key one. It sounds silly and it's hard to not get caught up in the emotion of the game, but it can affect your game massively. It can put you right off. It's happened to me numerous times through my career, and you can't exactly tell the manager, oh, sorry, I was just lost the plot there. It's not excusable. So that for me, it'd be something I wish I'd looked back on and curbed earlier. Managing my emotions during the game. It's good to be passionate, as Dougie says, but if it overspills, it affects your mindset. So be conscious of that when you're thinking referees are rubbish or coaches are rubbish or whatever. Try and rein it back in, count to 10 and go again, because certainly it would have made me a better player, at least, and these small things make big differences.
And maybe look at other sportsmen and women in other sports. If you look at rugby, look at the self-discipline and control in rugby. Phenomenal. So if you read maybe Legacy or read any book about the All Blacks, they'll tell you that some of the obviously like mental aspects, so like the development and strategies that they apply. How do they cope with literally being clattered in a tackle and getting up and maintaining that sense of discipline and control?
Yep, great. And Blair, we've heard from you for a little bit. So you're back as a 15-year-old. You're working under your gaffer, who's your dad as well, getting a hard time. How do you deal with some of these pressures?
Yeah, I would be going back to the whole confidence thing. If you're losing the ball, you can't sit on it. Yeah, you've always just got to be looking for the ball, always wanting the ball. Best thing to do is just get back on the ball, and it builds your confidence back up, and it helps your teammates as well, seeing everyone asking for the ball. So, if you've lost possession of the ball, the best thing to do is 100% try and go get it back and get back on it and start again and not dwell on things.
Yeah, and I suppose that message goes back to, as we said earlier, with the coaches, how our role is so important to give these young kids the confidence constantly. They're obviously going to make mistakes, but we certainly don't want to fall into their shells. We want to give them that confidence and guide them the right path as well, to be creative as well. And as Dougie says as well, it's not going to be a straight road, whether it's their life or their football journey. They've got to be able to try to, that resilience. We're talking about one of the words that's been well used, that resilience to bounce back from setback, which is ultimately going to happen a lot.
Yeah, definitely. When you see your teammates asking for the ball, your whole team's getting lifted. So it's definitely a good thing to get back on it.
Unless it's me asking for the ball, because I'm a centre half, you just didn't give me it.
Don't pass back, yeah.
I think it's done great. We've been 45 minutes, so I think we'll get three questions. So again, we're going to go with 3 of the biggest challenges a young player from youth section faces when they're trying to get into the senior. I know we've touched on that, but if you've got 3 things, Dougie, as a manager, and again we'll get input from the players as well there. So the transition again, coming from the youth section into the 20-stroke senior team.
Sure, can I suggest you start with Sid?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's got recent experience.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be touching back on the going from transition from under 20s to men's football. I was not being cocky. I was scoring 2-3 goals a week, sometimes consistently, and then going up to the first team, I was sometimes lucky to get 20-30 minutes at the end. because I just wasn't ready. But it's the whole trust thing. Like, Dougie's been in the game way longer than me. You've got to listen to the people that have been in it longer than you, and that was for me to go out on loan. And I'm just echoing what was earlier, and it's put me on leaps and bounds. So yeah, you just got to kind of trust the process, and yeah, it helped me out loads going on loan and just listening to people that have been in the game longer than me.
So, sorry, Blair, as Dougie touched on, it's quite an intimidating environment to suddenly step in a senior changing room when you're maybe, 17, 18, and you're in there with, men at 35, and how you social interact with them, and they maybe see you coming in to take their position.
Yeah.
As well, it's the managers and coaches' role to have that team spirit and culture, but it can be difficult with any new players coming in. So, and I think Dougie sort of touched on that as well. As younger players going into a senior or an adult changing room can be difficult as well.
Yeah, it can be. It was pretty scary going away to a strange team and proper men's football, freezing change rooms, muddy pitches. It's just, yeah. Who knows? I'll be one of those guys. Maybe talking to one of the guys in the chat today, coming up into Spartans first team. So it just goes around in circles. It's not as bad as it all seems, honestly.
I was going to say, I think if you look back to my time as a youth player coming up to the first team, it's a very different environment. And Dougie will maybe associate with this, where when you went into a first team changing room as my youngster, when I was young, it was very intimidating. You're kind of, it was pushing on bullying at that point. Back then, they got away with it because that was your initiation into the first team. You did apprenticeship, you cleaned the boots, and you basically run about for the team. It's totally different now. But I think the things that got me through that point, coming into a first team changing room and having to do all those things, get humiliated or whatever they did, cut your clothes up and all that stuff because you were the new guy, youngster in the changing room. It's about attitude. So if you go in there with a terrible attitude and think you're the big one and try and push back on it, and it's such, they'll pull you out. And this goes back to coming into our first team changing room. I can guarantee everybody in our first team changing room will want you to succeed and help our team. They'll do everything to do that. They'll not belittle you or make you feel worse. What I would say is human nature. If you come in with a big attitude and try to push yourself on top of people and be negative or be the big man, you'll quite quickly get shot down by certainly senior players and coaches. Not because they're bad, but there is a hierarchy or a way into the first team and experience. You've got to listen to experienced players and young players as well, and bide your time and learn. And if you've got that good attitude to do that, you'll be more than welcomed in, and there'll be no issues at all. I think that's a life lesson, I guess, as well. As I'm sure Dougie can touch on, but yeah, that's my experience from it.
I think it's all about the mix. I mean, the one thing that you get with young players is you get a fearlessness, and you get an enthusiasm and an energy that can be completely infectious in a dressing room. So I think it's really important. What you don't hear is like anybody suggesting for a minute that you don't be you. You've got to be you. You've got to be authentic. I think for me, it's about, can you get a level of consistency around meeting standards and meeting standards week in, week out, and maybe no feeling you're getting the reward. So have you got the resilience to actually stick at it, as we said earlier on, and trust the process? So for me, it's that ability to be patient, knowing that you're going to get your opportunity, and when your opportunity comes, just do the best that you can. So how do you maintain your sense of confidence and self-belief when you're not getting picked week after week after week? But actually, for young players, training with the first team is a huge development opportunity. And one of the things that Les and I pride ourselves on is working closely together to give the under 20 players a chance to go and be in that environment and become comfortable in that environment before they go there full time. And you can learn things just from dropping a player into the first team training once a month. The ones that go in and right away want the ball and are demanding the ball in the boxes, to the ones that go in and maybe didn't say a word all night. So whilst we want you to be humble and we want you to be respectful, the most important thing we want you to be is you. Is to be the best version of you. And if you do that, then you've got a chance.
Fantastic. And we've got one here from Chris McNamara from under 15s. I'm not really sure if Chris is online, he can maybe ask it. It says, did most of the Spartans players come from the pro youth, or did most of them come from other boys clubs? Chris, are you there? You could maybe...
Yeah, I was just wondering, because you were saying you'd come from Ross County and stuff, but do you think if you're maybe not at a professional team at 18 or whatever, you've definitely still got a chance to get into a team like Spartans.
Gosh, definitely. I went professional for the second time when I was 27. I remember a guy that I played with, Bonnery, called Davy Roseborough, who went full time when he was 27 and ended up playing the Premiership for Hamilton. Remember him, Bolo?
Yeah.
So there's lots of examples of people that have not been in pro youth, going on and signing for a professional club in their 20s. And I hope by the time you get to your 20s that we're a pro club and we're in League One by then. But I would take League Two. No, I think, like so that, as I said, it's just about challenging yourself to give yourself the best opportunity to be the best player you can be. So again, I go back to where I started tonight, which is when you're making those choices, the choices you're making taking you towards your goal or they're taking you away from your goal. I'm not a fan of the phrase sacrifices because, you're choosing to be involved in football because you enjoy it. So let's use positive language around it. You're not giving something up to go and do something you enjoy. So are the choices you're making taking you towards your goal or away from your goal? And for me, it's that simple.
Great. And well, two to finish with, a great one that I sort of left. It's more a football one again. It's coming from Gordon. Do we have specific player profiles that the first team require and attributes per position? So Dougie, obviously one for you. I think it's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. But I think if you take that to the minute level, Gordon, you end up becoming a prisoner to your own documentation. Football is about balance and blend. I think Neville was talking about the other day when he was talking about Maguire and Lindelof, saying that they're both individually good players, but they just didn't work as a partnership. For whatever reason, they just didn't work. Now, you can't say they're both no good players because they are. So, and the guys, Bolo and Sid will be sick of me speaking about this, but I am a massive on balance and blend. I've got a sort of pen portrait in my head, the types of players that I want to see in certain positions. So I definitely look for pace at the top end of the pitch. I think pace hurts teams, like you say, it scares teams. It might force a team to drop off, which will give us more space in the middle third to then retain the ball a wee bit easier. So yeah, I've got a pen portrait, but I'm not a prisoner to it.
I think, just to touch on that again, I think a great example of this in the Scottish game is Dick Campbell, who I worked with at Forfar. He is the best person at getting a blend of people, not necessarily great players or standouts costing loads of money, but he knows how to get players in the right positions and making that blend come together. And he's had success through that. And because on the converse, it doesn't always work just buying the best players for the most money.
Absolutely.
Not because Barry Ferguson tried it at Clyde with me.
Yep.
They failed drastically. So, definitely not.
Great. Last couple of questions. If you have any burning questions yourself, just take yourself off mute and shout out. So I'm sure one or two might have burning questions. We've got a couple of questions to finish with. So if you've got a question, just take yourself off mute and shout it out. Don't all shout at once now. Anything at all? Anybody? I'm maybe going to throw one in there, Dougie. Some coaches, some players talk about, managers or coaches only playing favourites. What do you perceive as being a favourite, and why would a manager have a favourite?
Why would a manager have a favourite? I would suspect a manager would have a favourite because it might be a player that's delivered results for in the past and they would trust them. That might be a scenario, but I think as human beings, we're obviously attracted to attributes we see in others that we think are maybe strengths in ourselves. So we've probably got that unconscious bias, and we can pretend we've not, but we do.
Yeah, sorry, Dougie, I was probably trying to lead to the second part. Kids that are hardworking, want to help out. When always in the training ground.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, if you listen to podcasts, I think Ole Solskjaer was telling the story about Danny Welbeck, I think it was, and that Danny Welbeck was always the one that got the balls and the bibs and the markers and all that at the end of training. And he was given a contract purely on that basis.
Yeah. Sorry for butting in, Dougie. I think it was Ferguson when he was doing an interview and he was saying, if I've got two players and I can't choose between them, whether it's two right wingers or two centre mids, I'll look back at training and seeing what one was away getting the markers and helping put in the training kit, and that'll be the one I'll give him. That to me, the terminology is wrong. That's not a favourite.
That's somebody who's meeting the performance standards that you expect. So therefore, the trust is greater because they've demonstrated it on numerous occasions that they can be trusted to hit that performance standard and let's call it do the right things. No, that's not a favourite. That's a cop out on the part of the player. If the player says that it's because it's a favourite, then I would suggest that player's maybe not taking responsibility for their own performance level and them not hitting the performance standards that are required. But that's my opinion.
I think it's absolutely right, Dougie. I just want to add that there's been many a time through my career if I chapped a manager's door and I'm saying, the guy you're playing in front of me has been rubbish for weeks. You're playing him now because he's your favourite and I should be in before him. And obviously, a lot of the time that doesn't work, he still didn't get a game. But because the manager does the same thing as what Dougie said there, well, if you think that fair enough, but you just need to go away and work harder and you'll get it at some point. And again, players are picked, like Dougie says, on people they can rely on and trust. If that's experienced players, sometimes might play before you. If you're a youngster, you've had a great 6 weeks in the team, and then Dougie puts me in front of you because it's a game he thinks I'll do better as an experienced player. You need to ride that and again, trust your coaches and that they're making choices for the team. And you'll not always understand them. But I think, like Dougie says, there's no always favourites. I wouldn't use that word, but managers do have people they'll trust and they'll know when to put in the right times, and that's a trust issue.
And you want to be in a dressing room where everybody in the dressing room celebrates the team winning, whether they've got number 1 to 11 on their back or not, because you're generally all in it together. Our job is to get the best out of each other. So what level of intensity can we bring to training week in, week out to try and push ourselves to get to the best level we can? So we're all in it together. We're all trying to help each other become the best version we can of ourselves.
Well, I think fantastic insight. A big thank you to Bolo Blair and obviously the gaffer Dougie. There's a lot of nuggets there for coaches and players. Some of the takeaways we're talking about: desire, discipline, life choices. Dougie said it's not necessarily sacrifice, it's making maybe the right choice. It's going to take you to your given destination and enjoy the journey as well. That comes from obviously your football journey as well as your life journey as well. It's taking enjoyment. It certainly shouldn't be a chore. So first of all, a personal big thanks to the three for giving their time up. And hopefully, the players and the coaches have taken a lot out the night as well. So thank you very much, everybody. In the next couple of days, I'll put a wee email out with some of the notes on it and get it out to you. So thank you, everybody, for attending. And again,
thanks for having us. Thank you.
Blair and Dougie.
And listen, if any of the coaches want to come and have a chat anytime, the door's always open, anytime.
Appreciate that, Dougie. Thank you.